Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT Champions 2025 Pickems for the group stage. Going to go through every game in this video and just pick who I think is going to make it out of each group. Give a little reasons why, go through the map pool specifically on the first couple games, and then we'll kind of go quickly through the rest of the games as well. So if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. This will be my last video before Champions, so make sure you guys enjoyed the event. You can go follow me on Twitter, where I'll probably be live tweeting my picks every day, at least after the initial round goes through. So after all these opening games are done, then I'll probably do it because obviously I'm not going to get every game from the opening round, right? That'd be kind of crazy. But yeah, if you guys enjoy that or enjoy this video, make sure to go follow me on Twitter. Also join my Discord. I'll probably be talking with people about stuff there. You can also go follow me on TikTok and Twitch. Links to those are both in the description. And yeah, let's get right into it. So starting with this Group A, you have PaperX versus XLG as the opening game. Or I don't know if it's the opening game. It is. It will be the first game of Champions. You got PaperX versus XLG. I think this is a pretty easy PaperX pick, but this should be a fairly interesting game. I actually have this being a 2-1 with XLG picking Haven, PaperX picking Bind, and then Ascent being the last map, where PaperX would start on the defensive side and win because of that, because they play their insanely heavy defense side to comp on Ascent. So I think they'll pull this game through against XLG. Should be fairly interesting, especially if XLG can keep up mechanically. If their players are in form, I actually think they have a decent chance of winning this game. But overall, I think it's the most likely scenario that you get a PaperX win, and honestly, probably most likely a PaperX 2-0, honestly, because I think they would win Haven assuming XLG players are in the same form that they were in playoffs. Then we have Giant X Sentinels. I think this is also fairly easy, but I also think there's a pretty big upset chance here, because I do think Giants will ban away one of Corrode or Lotus, which is the Sentinels' two good maps. They're extremely good on both of those maps, but the rest of their map pool, not so great. So that's going to be a bit of an issue. Sen will ban Ascent, which is also one of Giants' best maps, so that's a big help for them. But Sen would pick Lotus, Giants would pick Sunset, and Haven would be your final map. I think Sen barely pulls it through on Haven. I think they win Lotus, so lose Sunset, Giants win that map, because they've been pretty solid at that throughout the whole split. Sen have been barely not, they haven't been that great on Sunset. And then Haven, I think it's pretty close between the two teams, honestly, but I just think Sen overall is going to pull through in this game. But if you get the same, confident Giant X that you did during, the end of playoffs in the MEA, I think you could very, very much see an upset here. And I think it's a pretty big chance. Then I have PaperX beating Sen. Lotus, Bind, Sunset would be the three maps in the pool here, in my opinion. I think PaperX would win all of those pretty easily, or maybe not pretty easily, but I think I would very heavily favor them on most of those maps, maybe outside of Lotus, even though I do think PaperX would still win that. Then XLG Giants in the lowers. I struggle to not want to pick XLG here, honestly, just because I think map pool is probably Haven, Ascent, Lotus, where I think XLG is pretty heavily favored on Haven, Giants is favored on Ascent, and then Lotus is 50-50 depending on how well Giants can play against XLG's Lotus comp. But I do think XLG pull it through in this game. I think after the loss to Sen, the Giants players won't be playing with quite as much confidence as they were in playoffs, or even maybe in that game, and I think they lose. And then Sen XLG, I don't know, man. I think Sen is just the better team mechanically overall, and I think they'll win that game mostly off of that. So going into the in-game pick'ems here, real quick, we'll have PaperX and Sentinels making out of Group A, with XLG and Giant X in the eliminated section of the in-game pick'ems. All right, now into Group B, where I think this is one of the more interesting groups, because I think these games are a little lopsided with the seeding, where I think your two best teams are RRQ and Fnatic, while the other two teams are also playing in the other half of it. So we'll start with Billy versus MIBR. I think this map pool is fairly simple, assuming BLG ban Abyss. I think if Abyss gets through, I think you could see MIBR winning that, with Osbos's teams in the past having been really good at that map. Billy, I'm not exactly sure how good they are at that map, so I'm not gonna like give a full rating, but I do think MIBR would win on that map. But in my opinion, the map pool would be Bind, Lotus, Sunset, with Billy winning all of those maps. Like I don't think that they would lose any of those, especially not on Lotus or Sunset. I think there's chances for MIBR to win on Bind, but I do think Billy will just pull through and win the series off that. Then Fnatic RRQ. This one's fairly interesting because it depends how much you believe in Fnatic to bounce back with their map pool, because RRQ's map pool is pretty good outside of what you don't know about on Abyss, Bind not being very good, and their Ascent having lost it a bunch of times previously, but with a different comp. So, I mean, also if these two teams do match up on Ascent, I think RRQ will have a very good ante to the chamber comp that Fnatic usually brings out on that map. So it is a little interesting. I think you would see Lotus, Haven, Corrode in this series. That's what I picked for these teams. I think Fnatic would win Lotus, but RRQ would win the last two maps, and RRQ would make it through to the next round. Then did I even do the map pool for this elimination game? No, because I just think Fnatic's going to win. So I'm going to pick Fnatic in that game against MIBR and just move on with my day. So RRQ, Billy. This one is interesting to me because I do think Billy win a map here, and I think they'll probably have chances, and I think it'll come down to how well either team plays Abyss, because my map pool here is Corrode, which I think RRQ will absolutely stomp on, Lotus, which I think Billy should win. I would pretty heavily favor them there, even though RRQ did have to play Lotus in the final against PaperX, and they actually looked pretty good at it. But then the final map is Abyss in this series for me, and I just picked the team that I think is better, which is RRQ. But it is a pretty big deal which one of these teams practices Abyss more, or is better at Abyss at this time. And I mean, that's what the series comes down to for me overall. I think you could see maybe a Haven get in there and Ascent get in there if one team just wants to ban away Abyss. But I think overall, it'll just come down to your comfort on Abyss. And even in most of these series, like across the board, it'll probably come down to how comfortable these teams are on Abyss. Then BLG Fnatic in the lowers here. I have this map pool as Corrode, Lotus, Haven, with Fnatic winning Corrode, Billy winning Lotus, and then Fnatic winning on Haven at the end and pulling through. Just because I really don't see a Fnatic bombing out in groups, man. I talked about it in the power rankings, but I just think overall they'll improve their map pool enough to pull through during this tournament and at least make it deep, or fairly deep at least, like at least make it to playoffs, maybe do some stuff there. I don't know how deep they're exactly going to go, but I power rank them third, and I think they'll live up to that, even though they're going through in the lowers of this group. I think it might take them a little bit of time to ramp up during the group stage, and then into playoffs they'll finally hit their stride. So then into the in-game pick'ems, it'll be RRQ and Fnatic. Oh, no. RRQ and Fnatic. And then Billy and MIBR being eliminated. Now onto Group C, where we will start with Liquid versus DRX. And I think this group is the most interesting to me, because out of the past, like, calendar year-ish, you have three of the best teams on Abyss. You have Liquid, who was arguably the best team in the world at Bangkok on Abyss, DRX, who you could say the same thing about, and EDG, who was arguably the best team on the world, or in the world at Abyss in 2024 at the end of the year. So it really is going to be pretty interesting, especially with NRG not being that great on it in like off-season tournaments that briefly happened that I barely watched, to be fair. But yeah, we'll start with Liquid versus DRX. I think DRX come out and pick Abyss and win. I think that could go either way though, whichever team is more ready for it. I think Liquid pick Ascent and Bind though and win both of those and get this series against DRX. Then EDG NRG. I think you see something like Abyss, Corrode, Haven. EDG are getting a pretty big buff by not having to ban Icebox in this series, and I think they ban away NRG's best map in Lotus. But I do still think they lose this series where they win Abyss, EDG do, NRG win Corrode, and then NRG barely squeeze it out on Haven against them. Then DRX, EDG. You have, I think DRX pick Abyss again, EDG pick Corrode, and then Ascent remains, and I think EDG would win all three of those maps and move on to the next stage here. Pretty easy there for me. Even though, like, I think DRX will probably be better than what I'm giving them credit for. Like, I think one of NRG or EDG will underperform, maybe even both, and then DRX can get through. And DRX will probably be slightly better than maybe I'm giving them credit for here as well. But I need to see it from DRX before I believe it, and I haven't seen it from them. Then NRG Liquid. I think this map pool is Corrode, Ascent, Abyss, and I think NRG pretty easily win Corrode, like 13-5 type shit. Team Liquid win Ascent, and then Team Liquid win Abyss. So Team Liquid will go through in a 2-1, fairly close, and I do think NRG barely choked this away in the rematch against EDG. I usually like picking teams to win rematches, and that would be there. So, I mean, I could have picked EDG to win that final map of Haven in the original game, and then I would have picked NRG here. So it is very close between those two teams, but I think I slightly give the edge to EDG in that game. So then, in the in-game pick'ems, we will take Team Liquid, EDG, NRG, and DRX like that, I think. And then our final group here, Group D. Let me pull up my thing. There we go. Okay. So the opening game of this group will be G2 Heretics, which I think is very interesting. You'll get to see how good Heretics really is right off the bat. And I think Heretics will pick Haven and win that. G2 will pick Sunset and win that. And then your final map will be Bind, which I do think G2 will close it out on. This should be a fairly close series, I think, even if I'm not super high on Heretics. But this is Heretics getting punched in the face, and if you watch my power rankings video, you might see where I'm going with this. Then DRG T1. I ranked DRG 16th in my power rankings. But I do have this series being Sunset, Ascent, Haven. I think T1 wins on Sunset. And then DRG does win on Ascent and Haven to beat T1 and get probably the biggest upset of champs so far throughout here. I think you could maybe say no, maybe EDG over NRG is an upset, but in my pick'ems, this is the biggest one that I'm picking. Then T1 Heretics in the lowers will go. Actually, I'll just pick G2 over DRG because I was gonna do that no matter what. But Team Heretics T1, I think you have Haven, Sunset, Lotus is the map pool. I think Heretics win Haven again, but then T1 win both Lotus and Sunset, and Heretics go out 2-0, and then T1 beat DRG in the rematch, as I kind of previously stated, where I think that game's probably close, but DRG kind of get that opening game upset against T1, and T1 make it through to playoffs in the lowers. So, well, we've got some interesting news here to update you with this video, because I recorded this probably way too early, but Vokashu is apparently having some visa issues, and Demon 1 will be standing in for him at Champs. Now, the first thing with this video specifically is this doesn't change my power rankings that I posted a while ago, and this doesn't change my pick'ems that are in this video. So it really doesn't change anything. Demon 1, I think, is a solid enough Sentinel player, or will be a solid enough Sentinel player, and could maybe raise his stock quite a bit by playing in this event. But at the same time, does this team speak good enough English with Demon 1 to continue doing that? I'm not sure. I don't know what language they speak, and they might even be speaking English already with with Vukashu in the team, who's Russian. So I don't know. Like, it's a weird move to say the least. It's definitely interesting. I'll be more excited to watch DRG now. And they can probably play mostly the same comps overall. It's just like it's probably a slight downgrade because Vukashu's arguably their best player, and Demon One's coming in new to the team on short, like pretty short notice, I'd say, and coming in to fill a role that is fairly new for him at a tier 1 level. So it does kind of lower the chances, I think, of DRG actually making it to playoffs, in my opinion, but I still have them winning that opening game against T1, mainly because it's just fun to have some kind of upset to root for with my Pickems. So their final group here, we'll go to the in-game Pickems, and we will pick G2, T1, DRG, Team Heretics, which I feel pretty good about. Outside of maybe the Heretics going out 2-0, but honestly, I actually feel fine about that. I'm not worried that much, even though they are a good team, and I think more than likely you'll see G2 and Heretics getting it out of that group. But also, I can't pick Heretics against anybody right now, especially not G2 and T1, who I think are both solid teams. So going back to the VLR Pickems. Here we go. I have Paper X, Sentinels, RRQ, Fnatic, Team Liquid, EDG, G2, and T1 as my teams making it out of groups. Let me know what you guys think of these picks in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.